Hello, welcome back to Bioclass Bites. In this video, we are going to talk about disaster mitigation and adaptation. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like and share this video. To give us a quick overview on mitigation and adaptation, I recommend that you watch this video from Build with Strength entitled Hazard Mitigation. I'll provide the link in the description below. This concept map is taken from Teaching Guide for Senior High School on Disaster Readiness and Risk Reduction. So it shows us that the preparation for disaster risk management involves disaster risk reduction and disaster management. So disaster risk reduction tells us that in order for us to reduce the effects of disaster, we need to look into analysis and management of the different factors that constitutes a disaster. So that includes prevention. Okay, so that tells us the outright avoidance of the impacts of disaster. Okay, so this includes the intention to completely avoid potential impacts through action taken in advance. So to prevent the impacts of that particular hazard. Mitigation tells us the lessening or lessening of the impact. So one is to prevent, another is to mitigate or to lessen the impacts of those disasters. Adaptation tells us that it involves the adjustment of natural or human systems, adjustment of natural or human infrastructure in response to a possible effects of a disaster. So these three, prevention, mitigation, and adaptation, falls under disaster risk reduction. However, should disaster occurs, now we have disaster management. That includes preparedness. Okay, this involves the knowledge and capacities developed by governments, professionals and experts, recovery organizations, and communities and individuals that allows them to anticipate, respond, recover from a possible disaster. While response refers to the provisions of emergency services and public assistance during or immediately after a disaster. So preparedness for what's ever coming. Response, okay, to provide assistance immediately after a disaster, and then recovery. So that involves the restoration and improvement where appropriate of facilities and livelihoods of those regions that are affected by that disaster. So preparedness, response, and recovery fall under disaster management. So once all of these are accomplished, then we can say that that particular city or nation or country has a very good disaster risk management program in place. This is from Plan International, and we'll look into 5 ways communities around the world prepare for disasters. I'll provide the link in the description below. Number one is to build safe schools. Okay, so Plan International and other organizations like it find it very important to educate people, specifically those in countries and regions that are very vulnerable, but has low capacity to recover, to educate them a lot about disaster. Okay, so including students. Okay, starting with students. So build safe schools. The number two, to climate change proof their communities. Specifically, this is very important because we've discussed this in our lesson on climate change. So to specifically climate change proof their communities, we see here students like Luisa planting mangrove seedlings on a beach in the Philippines. So there. Then number three, sharing stories and learning adaptation techniques. Okay, so by overcoming their fears, survivors such as Erica, 10 years old here, is able to share how her family was able to overcome their disaster and to share to other people what they've learned from that. The number four, build stronger homes. Okay, we see here Binita, 20 years old. She is rebuilding her home after the 2015 earthquake in Nepal. So as you can see now, she's now helping out, okay, to use better and more stable and heavier structural materials to build her home, hopefully to be more earthquake proof. Okay, so as not to repeat what happened in 2015. And then very, very important, learning about natural hazards. Okay, this is a very good video for you to watch. Still from Plan International, learning about natural hazards. You can watch this and I'll provide the link in the description below. This is an interesting article from Thomas Insights entitled 7 Ways Worldwide Communities Are Preparing for Natural Disasters. Let's look into this and I'll provide the link in the description below. So how are communities disaster proofing their buildings and structures? The first example that they gave would be California's power grids. Okay, so California's electrical grid is actually quite important in our fight against climate change because as listed from this article from Legal Planet, um, uh, California's electrical grid power lines sparked many of the record-setting wildfires of 2017 and 2018. Okay, so what they are looking into is to having a cleaner, more resilient electrical grid for California. So groups and participants, state energy regulators, local government leaders, grid experts, clean energy advocates, experts from CLEE, so that's Berkeley Law's Center for Law, Energy, and the Environment, and UCLA's, University of California, Los Angeles, Emmett Institute on Climate Change and the Environment, looked into the following. Okay, so they created a report which highlights the following top policy solutions. So number one, the most important thing they looked into is the necessity of investments in reliable carbon-free technology so that those wildfires will not happen anymore. So number two is to create new microgrids and other distributed technologies. Okay, and to initiate a new energy data collection and management process. So these are the things they're looking into to make California's power grids more resilient against disasters, specifically wildfires. So you can look into this article from Legal Planet. I'll provide the link in the description below. Next would be America's disaster resistant museums. So this is still from Thomas Insights. So how museums are leading the way in natural disaster preparation and management. Again, linked in the description below. So I looked into this, and these are the things that they are actually doing for museums like the Getty Center. So that includes fire-resistant architecture. So the walls of this museum are made up of stone, concrete, and protected steel, which are highly fire-resistant. So the Santa Barbara Museum of Art is undergoing major renovations for humidity control and fire prevention. Fire-resistant landscaping. So the Getty Center planted drought-resistant plant and trees so that they will be fire-resistant and they will retain water and not prone to wildfire, okay, or not prone to catching fire. This one is very interesting. They looked into using goats. So as a preventive measure, the Ronald Reagan Library enlisted the help of a herd of goats to munch up the flammable scrub surrounding the complex. And it got my interest and I looked into that and it's true, no? So this one is from BBC News. Goats helped save Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. So what they did was a hungry herd of 500 goats chewed up the flammable scrub, the flammable plants and weeds and grass around the library. Okay, so they ate the brush or the bushes there, creating a fire break that slowed the flames and gave the firefighters extra time to react. But of course, no, they did the munching, the goats did the eating before the fire broke out. Okay, so they're now looking into that alternative. Okay, they're looking into this policy, or they're looking into this practice of having of goats and having them eat up the flammable scrub, plants, and weeds surrounding their complex. So maybe that's something, the Philippines can also adapt. Then Art First Aid, so the Foundation for Advancement in Conservation, they trained museum staff to clean damaged works and to actually prevent the actually to make them more fire resistant as much as possible. So to repair works of art, prioritization. So not all institutions have the funding to invest on disaster plans. However, that includes training of their staff. Okay, staff knowing which pieces to prioritize in case of a disaster. So maybe our National Museum can also look into this, or maybe they already have one program in place. So that's very interesting. Next would be Kerala's low-cost disaster-proof housing. So this one is actually a project from the TKM College of Engineering. TKM stands for, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Tanggal Kunju Musalyar College of Engineering. So they looked into how technology could protect them against disaster. So the students there came up with designs for innovative low-cost house design. So they use less cement, but can withstand the load required by regulations. The shell technology was used with interlocking clay bricks that were made by the local community and do not need mortar or cement to bind them. So this was actually recognized by the United Nations academic impacts. Okay, so they recognized this design by the students from TKM College, and yeah, so these are photos of those of their design. Okay, so this is their actual design. You can check this out from the link. I'll provide it in the description below. So it has a very sturdy construction, and it uses clay bricks that are actually made by the community members, that are made by the people in their community, and it uses less cement. So innovative, low cost, but can withstand disasters. Okay, so if you're interested, you could check this out. Links in the description below. Next would be Japan's rail network protective technology. So we all know that Japan is actually one of the countries along the Pacific Ring of Fire. They are prone to disaster, but they actually take disaster risk management very seriously. So they have a lot of programs, a lot of technology in place to protect their community, their citizens against disasters. So we have here from Japan Gov, okay, the never-ending effort for earthquake safety. So you can watch this video about the video that they have here for Resilient Japan. I'll provide the link in the description below. So we have here images from their website. So here, Hayabusa, a train on the Tohoku Shinkansen, okay, their major railway, their major train, okay, can reach maximum speeds of 320 kilometers per hour, okay. However, it has earthquake countermeasures and that are continuously progressing. So that includes Shinkansen drivers repeatedly practicing emergency shutdowns. Okay, so this is one of the technologies that they have. So once there's a seismic movement or an earthquake that was detected by their sensors, it will immediately shut down the Shinkansen. Okay, so it will immediately relay the information to the substation, and then emergency brake will be put in place. Okay, so emergency trains stop in the appropriate route sections following an earthquake detection. So including ocean bottom seismometers. So even if it's quite far away, as long as they're very sophisticated monitors detected it, then it will automatically break or shut down the rail, the rail transportation. So power, on detecting an earthquake, power to trains running in affected route, again, is cut off, bringing them to a safe stop. So you could look into this, link to the description below. Then I've mentioned this Plan International, okay? Plan International's restructuring of schools in Bangladesh. So again, we've looked into this. So the most important thing that they look into is to educate the communities about safety against disasters. So you could check this out. So they have, these are just some of their programs for Bangladesh. So that includes boats for safe crossing in case of flood or earthquakes or any disaster, educating the students at school, okay, and many more. Okay, you can all look into that. Then number 6, build change affordable housing following the 2015 Nepal earthquake. So how cities are rebuilding to be more resilient to natural disasters. So this is from PBS NewsHour. Very interesting article. I'll provide the link in the description below. This is one of those designs, okay, of houses that can withstand disaster. So this one is from Design Jones LLC, a landscape plan. So it includes stormwater, collecting stormwater, okay, rain barrels to reduce the likelihood of flooding in the streets, okay. And of course using or making use of sturdy materials to withstand earthquakes and other disasters. Then Rebuild by Design's flood protection again in California. So they actually have a video on it that explains what they plan to do in the future to protect California from sinking or not or to protect California from future floods. So this one is very interesting. I recommend that you watch this video. Linked in the description below. Now, this is an article from Washington Post, how Venice's plan to protect itself from flooding became a disaster in itself. Okay, I'll provide the link in the description below. So Venice is actually a city in Italy. It's built in a lagoon in the Adriatic Sea. So there are no major roads and their mode of transportation is through canals. Okay, so I think you're familiar with that. So they have what they have this called what they call MOS MOSI system. These are mobile barriers that aims to protect Venice from high tides. So that's the initial goal. So these barricades, these barriers will protect the inner part of Venice should there be high tides. Okay, so that the cities will not be flooded that much. However, there are some problems with the structure, with the infrastructure, with the mobile barriers, and it actually caused more problems for the city. But thankfully, um, the flood barriers are working now, and they are able to bring the city back to life. So, if you're interested on how all of this transpired, you can check out all the links in the description below. Now, as technology progresses, of course, we can also use the help of artificial intelligence, specifically in predicting disasters. So these are two articles, one from Forbes, how AI can and will predict disasters, linked in the description below. And this one is from The Verge. AI is helping seismologists detect earthquakes that they otherwise miss. So I recommend that you check these articles out, links in the description below. So currently, artificial intelligence are being used in predicting disasters, specifically for earthquakes. So AI systems can be trained with the help of seismic data to analyze the magnitude and patterns of earthquakes in terms of floods. Researchers and tech experts are developing AI applications to actually look into the data such as rainfall records and flood simulations to predict flooding, volcanic eruptions. AI can actually predict volcanic eruptions through seismic data. And AI can use satellite to predict and monitor the path of hurricanes and tornadoes. Now, this one is from The Verge. Google and Harvard team are planning to use deep learning to predict earthquake aftershocks, still using artificial intelligence. So, links in the description below. So, according to The Verge, AI is more accurate than existing models because they can predict aftershock locations more reliable than existing models. Okay, so they are thinking into looking how AI can predict where aftershocks and earthquake are going to occur, how big they are, where they're going to be, and that's all very important, very helpful for disaster risk management. I also recommend that you read these readings, okay, these recommended readings about disaster risk and reduction management. All of this can be found in the online library. That ends our video. I hope you learned something new. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like and share this video. Till next time, goodbye.